Good morning and welcome to Barbara's Bulletin. As we begin this new week, the world is watching with great concern the escalating tensions in the Middle East. The conflict between Iran and the U.S.-Israeli coalition has now entered its 30th day, with no clear end in sight. According to reliable sources, Pakistani officials are hosting talks with their counterparts from Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt in Islamabad today. These diplomatic efforts aim to de-escalate regional tensions, but so far it appears that neither American nor Iranian representatives are participating. This raises questions about the potential for meaningful progress. To the best of our knowledge, the situation on the ground remains volatile. Iranian forces have been launching missiles at Israel, and Israeli airstrikes have targeted various locations across Iran, including the capital city of Tehran. The Pentagon is reportedly preparing for possible ground operations in Iran, with thousands of U.S. soldiers and Marines arriving in the Middle East. As we try to make sense of these complex developments, it's essential to consider the historical context. The Middle East has long been a region of deep-seated conflicts, fueled by competing interests, ideologies, and cultural differences. Today's events are a sobering reminder that the consequences of war can be devastating and far-reaching. Based on the information available, it seems that both sides are digging in for a prolonged conflict. Iranian officials have vowed to resist any U.S.-led ground invasion, while American and Israeli leaders continue to insist that all options remain on the table. As we navigate this treacherous landscape, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the human cost of war. The families of those killed or injured, the displaced communities, and the innocent civilians caught in the crossfire, their stories are a powerful reminder of the need for diplomacy and restraint. We'll be following these developments closely and bringing you updates throughout the day. For now, let's take a deep breath and consider the weight of these events. The world is watching, and we must remain vigilant and informed. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Barbara's Bulletin. Welcome back to Barbara's Bulletin. We're continuing our coverage of global events that are shaping our world. Today, we're focusing on the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine and its impact on the global energy market. According to recent reports, Ukrainian drone attacks have disrupted Russian oil exports from several Baltic ports, including Ust-Luga and Primorsk. This has led to concerns about potential supply chain disruptions and price volatility in the energy sector. To put this into perspective, the International Energy Agency has reported that over 40 energy sites across 9 countries in the Middle East have been severely damaged, potentially prolonging disruptions to global supply chains once the war in Iran ends. The Strait of Hormuz, which normally handles a fifth of the world's oil, remains essentially closed, and Persian Gulf oil producers have been forced to cut production by roughly 6%. Meanwhile, OPEC Plus has announced plans to boost its crude output by 260 barrels per day in April, although this production hike now seems unlikely given the current situation in the Middle East. The U.S. Energy Information Administration has also reported that U.S. crude oil inventories are slightly above the seasonal 5-year average, while gasoline inventories are above average and distillate inventories are below average. It's worth noting that the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine has resulted in significant restrictions on Russian crude exports, which is bullish for oil prices. Ukrainian drone and missile attacks have targeted at least 28 Russian refineries over the past 7 months, limiting Russia's crude oil export capabilities and reducing global oil supplies. As we continue to monitor this situation, it's essential to consider the potential implications for the global economy and energy markets. We'll be keeping a close eye on developments and bringing you updates as more information becomes available. Welcome back to Barbara's Bulletin. As we wrap up today's show, I'd like to take a closer look at the complex and fascinating history between the United States and Cuba. The two nations have been locked in a tumultuous relationship for decades, with periods of attempted cooperation punctuated by episodes of outright hostility. From the early 20th century, when American business interests dominated the Cuban economy, to the rise of Fidel Castro's socialist revolution in 1959, the U.S. has struggled to come to terms with its southern neighbors' independence. The failed Bay of Pigs invasion, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and subsequent attempts to assassinate Castro are just a few examples of the extreme measures taken by the U.S. to exert control over the island. In recent years, we've seen a back and forth between relaxation and tightening of restrictions, with President Barack Obama's efforts to normalize relations giving way to President Donald Trump's more aggressive stance. The current situation is marked by a crippling energy blockade, widespread power outages, and deepening dissatisfaction among the Cuban population. Despite these challenges, Cuba remains a resilient nation, with a strong sense of identity and a determination to chart its own course. As historian Carlos Fernandez de Cosio noted, Cuba is sovereign and will not accept being controlled by another state. As we consider the intricacies of this long-standing conflict, it's essential to approach the topic with nuance and empathy, recognizing the legitimate concerns and aspirations of both nations. By doing so, we can work towards a more informed understanding of the complex issues at play and perhaps, one day, a more constructive and peaceful relationship between the U.S. and Cuba. That's all for today's Barber's Bulletin. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, stay engaged.